My daughter chose her wealthy in-laws over me, until one call changed everything. The phone rang at 2:47 in the morning. I know the exact time because I was lying awake staring at the ceiling, wondering how my life had come to this. I saw her name on the screen, my daughter, the one who hadn't called me in 6 months, the one who had made it very clear she didn't want me in her new life. I almost didn't answer, but something told me to pick up, something in my gut, that mother's instinct that never really goes away, no matter how much your children hurt you. When I heard her voice, I knew something was terribly wrong. She was crying, not the soft, polite crying she did when she was trying to hold it together. This was the kind of crying that comes from somewhere deep, the kind that sounds like a person who has lost everything. "Mom," she said, just that one word, but it was enough. I hadn't heard her call me that in years. What happened between us didn't happen overnight. It was a slow thing, like a crack in a windshield that starts small and then spreads until you can't see the road anymore. Let me go back to the beginning because that's the only way any of this makes sense. My name is Patricia. I'm 63 years old. For most of my life, I worked as a nurse at the county hospital. I worked the night shift for 27 years. I took care of people when they were at their worst. I held hands with the dying. I brought babies into the world. I bandaged scraped knees and changed bedpans. It wasn't a glamorous life, but it was a life of purpose. I raised my daughter, Lily, mostly on my own. Her father walked out when she was 4 years old, said he needed to find himself. I never heard from him again. Child support came for a few years and then it stopped. I didn't have time to chase him. I had a daughter to raise and bills to pay. So I did what I had to do. I worked double shifts. I clipped coupons. I bought her clothes at thrift stores and told her it was like going on a treasure hunt. I made her lunch every morning even when I was exhausted from working all night. I went to every parent-teacher conference. I sat through every school play, every band concert, every soccer game. I was tired, but I was there. Lily was a bright girl, ambitious. She got good grades without really trying. She was always the smartest one in the room and she knew it. I tried to teach her humility. I tried to teach her kindness. But her father's blood ran through her veins. He was ambitious too. He always wanted more money, more status, more everything. He could never just be happy with what he had. When Lily was 17, she got a scholarship to a private school across town. I was proud of her, but I also saw a shift. She started hanging out with kids from rich families, kids who wore designer clothes and drove cars their parents bought them, kids who had never known what it was like to count change at the grocery store. She started coming home later. She started talking differently. She started looking at our house like it was beneath her. We lived in a small 2-bedroom bungalow. The paint was peeling. The roof leaked when it rained, but it was our home. It was the place where she learned to ride a bike. The place where I taught her to bake cookies from scratch. The place where she fell asleep in my lap when she was little. One night when she was a senior in high school, she asked me why we didn't have a nicer house. She asked why I never remarried. She asked why I couldn't just be like the other mothers. I told her, this is who we are, Lily. We're not rich, but we're rich in other ways. She rolled her eyes. She walked away. That was the first time I felt the distance. It was small then, like a thread that was starting to fray. I didn't realize then that it would keep unraveling. She went to college on a full scholarship. I was so proud of her. I cried at her graduation. I cried at her high school graduation too. I always cried at her milestones. She was my only child, my whole world. In college, she met a boy named Andrew. His family was wealthy. I mean really wealthy. Old money. The kind of money that buys you a house in the Hamptons and a summer home in the mountains. The kind of money that means you never have to worry about anything ever again. Andrew was handsome and polite. He had good manners. He opened doors for Lily. He called me ma'am. He seemed like a nice enough young man. His parents, though, his parents were something else. I met them for the first time at Lily's college graduation dinner. They took us to a restaurant that cost more per plate than I made in a week. His mother, Margaret, looked me up and down like I was something she had scraped off her shoe. She didn't say anything rude. She was too polished for that. But I saw the way her eyes moved over my dress, the way she glanced at my hands, the way she whispered something to her husband and smirked. His father, Richard, was worse. He didn't even try to hide it. He asked me what I did for a living. When I told him I was a nurse, he nodded slowly and said, "That must be rewarding." The way he said it, like I was some kind of saintly peasant, like I was doing the world a favor by changing bedpans, like I wasn't worthy of sitting at the same table as him. Lily saw it. I could tell she saw it, but she didn't say anything. She just smiled and laughed at their jokes and pretended everything was fine. That night in the hotel room, I asked her about it. I said, "Lily, his parents don't seem to like me very much." She said, "Mom, they're just different. They're not used to our kind of people." Our kind of people, that phrase cut deeper than she'll ever know. They got engaged a year later. The wedding planning was a nightmare. Margaret took over everything. She didn't ask for my input. She didn't ask for my opinion. She just sent me a schedule of events and told me what color dress to wear. I wanted to help. I offered to make the centerpieces. I offered to bake the cake. I was a good baker. I learned from my grandmother. But Margaret said, "Oh, that's so sweet, Patricia, but we've already hired a professional. You just focus on being the mother of the bride." The day of the wedding, I sat in the third row. I wasn't in the family photos. They took them before I arrived. Lily said it was a scheduling mix-up. I knew it wasn't. At the reception, I tried to talk to her. I wanted to tell her how beautiful she looked. I wanted to tell her I was proud of her, but she was surrounded by Andrew's family. They were laughing and drinking champagne and ignoring me. I stood in the corner for most of the night. I watched my daughter dance with her new husband. I watched her laugh with her new mother-in-law. I watched her become someone else, someone I didn't quite recognize. After the wedding, things changed. Lily started calling less. She stopped coming home for holidays. She always had an excuse. Andrew's parents invited them to Aspen. They had to go to a charity gala in New York. They were renovating their house and needed to supervise the contractors. The first Christmas she didn't come home, I sat alone in my living room. I had bought her presents, a beautiful quilt I had spent months making by hand, a collection of her grandmother's recipes I had transcribed and bound in a leather journal. I wrapped them in pretty paper and put them under the tree. She never came, she never called. She texted me on Christmas morning, just a text. "Merry Christmas, Mom. We're in Vail with Andrew's family. I'll call you next week." She didn't call next week. She didn't call the week after that. I started seeing her life on social media, photos of her on yachts, photos of her at fancy restaurants, photos of her wearing clothes that probably cost more than my mortgage. She looked happy. She looked like she belonged in that world. She changed her last name to his, not hyphenated, just his. She said it was simpler for business. I understood, but I also felt like I was losing her, like she was shedding the parts of herself that came from me. The breaking point came 2 years ago. It was my birthday. I was turning 61. I didn't plan anything big, just a small dinner at my house. I invited Lily. I told her it would just be a few people from the neighborhood. Betty from next door, my coworker Carol, nothing fancy. She said she would try to come. The day of the party, I spent all day cooking. I made her favorite dishes, chicken and dumplings, macaroni and cheese with the crumbly topping, a chocolate cake from scratch. I set the table with my mother's china. I put flowers in the center. I wanted everything to be perfect. She didn't show up. I waited. The neighbors arrived. Carol arrived. We sat around the table. I kept glancing at the door. I made excuses. She's just stuck in traffic. She probably had a late meeting. Betty looked at me with pity in her eyes. She knew, she always knew. At 8 o'clock, I got a text. It was from Lily. "So sorry, Mom. Andrew's parents surprised us with a weekend trip to Napa. I couldn't get out of it. I'll make it up to you, promise." I didn't respond. I couldn't. I was too busy trying not to cry in front of my guests. Later that night, after everyone had gone home, I sat alone in my kitchen. The cake was untouched. The chicken and dumplings were cold. I looked at the flowers I had arranged so carefully. They were already starting to wilt. I called her the next morning. She answered. I could hear the guilt in her voice. "Lily," I said, "I need to know, do you still want me in your life?" She was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "Mom, you're making this harder than it has to be. I have a new life now, a new family. You need to accept that." I said, "I'm your mother. I've always been your mother. I will always be your mother." She sighed, that heavy sigh that sounds so dismissive. "I know that, but you need to understand, Andrew's family, they've done so much for us. They've given us so much. I have to prioritize them." Prioritize? She used that word like we were talking about a business decision. "I'm not asking you to choose between us," I said. "I'm asking you to remember where you came from." She said, I remember everything. I remember the small house. I remember the cheap clothes. I remember being embarrassed by where I lived." The words hit me like a physical blow. I felt like I couldn't breathe. "Embarrassed," I said. "Mom, you know what I mean. We struggled. We barely made it. I don't want to go back to that. I don't want to be that person anymore." She was ashamed of me, of our life, of everything I had sacrificed for her. I said, "Lily, I gave you everything I had, everything. I worked double shifts so you could have a future. I went without so you could have nice things. I never complained, not once." "And I'm grateful," she said. "I really am, but that's in the past. I have to think about my future now, my future with Andrew." I couldn't speak anymore. I was too hurt. I said, "I have to go." I hung up the phone. I didn't cry. I just sat there. I had been a nurse for too long to cry. I had seen too much pain. I had steeled myself against it. But that phone call broke something inside me. I didn't try to call her again after that. She didn't call me either. The silence stretched for months, then a year and a half. I still followed her on social media. I watched her life from a distance. She posted photos of her beautiful house, her beautiful husband, her beautiful vacations. She never posted about me. I was a ghost. A few months ago, I got a letter from her. It was typed, formal. I could tell she had paid someone to write it. It was a letter informing me that she and Andrew had decided to start a family. They were making arrangements for their estate. They wanted to make sure everything was in order. The letter mentioned that I had been excluded from their wills. There was a paragraph about how they had decided to allocate their assets to Andrew's parents and to their own future children. I was not mentioned. I was not included. I didn't cry. I felt numb. I had already lost her. The letter just made it official. I went to the bank the next day. I had a safe deposit box. Inside was a box of old photographs, pictures from Lily's childhood, her first birthday, her first day of school, her first dance recital, the day she graduated from nursing school. Wait, no, she didn't go to nursing school. She went to business school. She got an MBA. She became a marketing executive. She was always smarter than me. She always wanted more. I looked at those photographs and I wondered where I had gone wrong. I wondered if I had been too hard on her, too demanding, too absent. I had worked so much. I had missed so much. But I had done it for her, all of it, to give her a better life. I didn't hear from her again until that phone call. 2:47 in the morning, the phone ringing, her name on the screen. I answered. She was crying. She couldn't form words. "Lily," I said, "calm down, take a breath, what's wrong?" She choked out the words, "Andrew, he's gone." I felt my heart stop. Gone where? She cried harder. "He left me, he walked out. He said he was going to get milk, he never came back." I sat up in bed, my mind was racing. "He left you? What do you mean he left you?" "He was having an affair," she said, "with his assistant. They've been together for months. He took half of everything, the house, the cars, the money. He left me with nothing. His parents took his side. They said I was a gold digger. They said I never loved him. They said I was just after their money." I heard her take a shaky breath. "Is it true?" she asked. "Was I just after their money?" I didn't know what to say. I had never seen her so broken. I had never heard her sound so small. "Lily," I said, "listen to me. You are my daughter. I have always loved you. I will always love you. I know you're scared. I know you're hurting, but I'm here. I'm still here." She sobbed. "I'm sorry, Mom. I'm so sorry. I pushed you away. I was so stupid. I thought they were my family. I thought they were the ones who mattered, but they were never my family. They never accepted me. They never really loved me. You were the only one. You've always been the only one." I felt the tears coming. I couldn't stop them. They ran down my face. "Where are you right now?" I asked. "I'm in a hotel," she said. "I've been here for 3 days. I didn't know where else to go. I didn't know who to call." "Send me the address," I said. "I'm coming to get you." "It's a 4-hour drive, Mom. You can't drive that far at night." "I'll stop for coffee," I said. "Send me the address." I drove through the night. The roads were empty. The sky was black. I drank coffee from a gas station and listened to old country music on the radio. I thought about Lily. I thought about the little girl who used to hold my hand. I thought about the teenager who used to argue with me about everything. I thought about the woman who had broken my heart. I arrived at the hotel at 6 in the morning. The sun was just starting to rise. I found her room. I knocked on the door. She opened it. She looked terrible. Her eyes were puffy. Her hair was a mess. She was wearing pajamas that looked like they hadn't been changed in days. She looked at me, I looked at her, and then she fell into my arms. We stood there in the doorway of that hotel room, holding each other, crying. I took her home with me, back to the small bungalow with the peeling paint and the leaky roof. I gave her my bed. I slept on the couch. I made her coffee in the morning. I made her chicken soup. I held her while she cried. She told me everything, the whole story. Andrew had been unfaithful for the entire marriage. The affair with his assistant had been going on for 2 years. He had been hiding money, moving it to accounts she didn't know about. When she confronted him, he walked out. He didn't even look back. His parents had been cold. They had accused her of ruining their son's reputation. They had spread rumors about her. They had made her the villain in their story. She had nobody. She had pushed away the only person who had ever truly loved her. She had pushed away me. I listened. I didn't judge. I just held her hand. Weeks went by. She stayed with me. We started talking, real talking, the kind we hadn't done in years. We talked about her father. We talked about the years I worked double shifts. We talked about why she had felt so ashamed of our life. "I was insecure," she said one night. "I thought if I was rich I would feel safe. I thought if I had money I wouldn't have to worry anymore. I thought Andrew's family was the answer. I thought they would fix everything. I was so wrong." I said, we all make mistakes, Lily. I made plenty. I wasn't always there for you. I worked too much. I was tired too often. I should have been more present. I was doing my best. She looked at me. You did everything, Mom. You did everything, and I was too proud to see it. I reached across the table and took her hand. We can't change the past, but we can figure out the future. She started going to therapy. She got a job, a small one, not the kind of executive job she used to have, something simpler. She worked at a bookstore. She said it was peaceful. She said she liked being around words. She started cooking with me. We would spend Saturday afternoons in the kitchen. I taught her how to make my mother's recipes, the ones I had written in that leather journal she never received, the one I had kept in the safe deposit box with all the photographs. One day I gave it to her, the journal. She opened it and started reading. She read the old recipes in my mother's handwriting. She traced the letters with her finger. "This was my grandmother's?" she asked. I nodded. She was an amazing cook. She taught me everything, and I wanted to teach you. I made this for you for Christmas, the year you didn't come. She looked at me, her eyes welled up. You made this for me. Of course I did, I said. You're my daughter. I never stopped loving you. I never stopped hoping. I never stopped waiting for you to come back. She pulled me into a hug. She held me tight. I'm not leaving again, she said. I promise I'm not leaving. The divorce was finalized last spring. She got a settlement, not a huge one. Andrew's lawyers had been thorough, but it was enough. She used it to buy a small house in my neighborhood, 3 blocks away, far enough for privacy, close enough for coffee. She's doing okay. She's not the same person she was, but that's a good thing. She's humbler now. Kinder, she volunteers at the local food bank. She walks her dog past my house every morning and waves. She still calls me at weird hours sometimes, but now it's just to chat, to tell me about her day, to ask me for advice about a recipe. Our relationship isn't perfect, it never will be. The hurt doesn't go away, but it fades, it gets smaller, it becomes something you can carry. I think about that phone call, 2:47 in the morning, the ring that changed everything. If I had ignored it, I don't know where we would be today. I think about all the times I could have given up on her. I think about all the times I wanted to. I'm glad I didn't. I don't know what the future holds, but I know one thing: I have my daughter back, I have her in my life, and that's all I ever really wanted. It didn't happen the way I thought it would. It happened through pain, through loss, through heartbreak, but it happened. Love found a way. If this story touched your heart, please subscribe to Family Honor Files for more unforgettable stories of family, courage, forgiveness, justice, and second chances. Your support helps us bring more meaningful stories to people who need them. Thank you for being part of the Family Honor Files community.